Schil is a 601 metre peak on the border ridge of England and Scotland in the heart of the Cheviots. You could say that the Schil and I have a bit of a troubled history. In March 2016, I set off with a new lightweight one-man tent with the aim of spending my first night on the Schil. However, with bad weather drawing in and the light quickly fading, I was forced to pitch by Corby Crag just shy of the summit. In December of the same year, I was back. This time with a more robust semi-geodesic tent, my mate Chris and my dog Bert. We managed to camp on the summit and got a really good night sky. However, there was a bit of an incident. Chris is a bit of a wimp, you see, and had brought hand warmers with him. In the middle of the night, Bert decided it would be a good idea to eat one of these, and then he proceeded to be sick all over my kit and my side of the tent. I was not amused, to say the least. So having just waved goodbye to Storm Babbitt and awaiting the arrival of Storm Kieran, I was back for round 3. The effects of the recent storms were evident. The landscape was absolutely sodden, rivers swollen, fields submerged, as I squelched with every footstep further into the Cheviots. I had been keeping a close eye on the weather forecast, and this had been absolutely all over the place, swinging from winds of 35 miles an hour to 70 miles an hour, and everything from a clear night to torrential downpours. On the morning of the camp, one last check showed that the forecast was a bit more favourable, so I packed my bag and off I went. But those more extreme forecasts were definitely at the forefront of my mind. This route up to the Schil is tremendous. It starts off on tarmacked roads that service the more remote farms. Soon the views are dominated by the border ridge itself. This ridge, wildly rugged and beautiful, was once a lawless and dangerous frontier. It has seen battle and bloodshed for centuries. It was crossed by the raiding parties of the border reavers as land, money and lives were fought for and defended. The Schil sits directly on the border between England and Scotland. It has a very impressive summit cairn that you have to do a little bit of climbing on to say that you've truly been to the top. I was thankful of this, as it would provide a bit of shelter from the wind, which was really starting to pick up. Looking towards the dark skies over the Cheviot to the east, I decided to get the tent up quickly. I managed to get it up just in time before the heavens opened and the wind really kicked in. With such poor conditions outside, which were set to get worse, it was going to be a long night in the tent. Before long, it was time for a coffee and a hot meal. Usually, I'm pretty weight conscious, as I have to lug anything I'm carrying up to where I'm camping. So I usually go for lightweight titanium cookware. However, there is a price to pay for the convenience of it being so light. You see, titanium heats up quickly, but it does not disperse heat very well, meaning that you get hot spots in your pan. This is less than ideal for cooking. So recently, I made the decision to get a stainless steel pan, which is a few 100 grams heavier, but will hopefully be worth it as it disperses heat much better and things should cook more evenly. As I sat listening to the wind and rain buffeting the tent, I couldn't help thinking about the absurdity of the legality of wild camping in this part of the world. The wind was blowing from the east. This meant I sought shelter, pitching my tent to the west of the summit cairn. This meant that I was in Scotland. Had the wind been blowing in the opposite direction, forcing me to pitch on the east-hand side of the cairn, I would be in England, where I'd technically be breaking the law. You see, although widely tolerated in some areas, wild camping is not legal in England, whereas just a few metres away in Scotland, it's perfectly fine. It's a crazy situation. The weather worsened through the night, and my sleep was not great as a result. But the tent held up well, and at one point I think I got 2 hours of uninterrupted sleep. The worst of the rain and wind was due to hit at about 9 AM, so I was up very early to get breakfast cooked and to make a quick exit. As I peered outside the tent, it was a very inhospitable environment. The rain was torrential, and the wind was the kind that can catch you off balance if a strong gust gets you. I tried a new dish for breakfast to put the new pan through its paces: pancakes. I must say these turned out rather well, great with a little bit of honey on them. As I was just finishing the cooking of my second pancake, something hit me on the back of the head. Turning around, the whole back of the tent was being pushed right into me. I was sure that something must have failed. A peg ripped out, a pole or guy line snapped, so I quickly put my boots on and ran out to see what the problem was. To my surprise, nothing had failed. All the pegs were still in. No poles were snapped, but the force of the wind was simply too much for the tent. I think I've found its limit. So there was only one thing to do. I quickly popped back into the tent to eat my last pancake, and then it was a case of quickly packing everything away. The conditions were really horrendous as I battled against the rain and wind to get the tent put away. On days like this, it's just a case of stuffing things away and sorting it all out when you get home. As we move into the winter months, good quality waterproofs are absolutely essential. Getting wet, combined with low temperatures and biting winds, is a recipe for hypothermia. It's important to prepare well for weather like this. As I descended, the higher paths that had been reasonably dry yesterday were now full-on streams of water, flowing down into the rivers and streams below. It was amazing to see how much water had fallen overnight. So the Schil, round 3. I think we'll call this one a draw.